Welcome back, everybody, to the Mountain Morning Show. Our next interview is something special because you don't have to be a filmmaker to appreciate what they're going to talk about next. We are joined by Doreen Ringer-Ross, the VP at BMI for Film and Television, composer Heather Mcintosh, and composer Kris Bowers. Thank you three for coming out here in this snowstorm we're having.
Beautiful.
So, this is cool what you guys are here for. It's for a roundtable that BMI holds, not just for Sundance, but all year long, I believe.
Well, we are year-round sponsors of the Sundance Institute, specifically of their film music program. And the crown jewel of that is their Composers Lab. Actually, now they're calling it Composer and Sound Design Lab because it happens up at Skywalker Ranch.
Ooh.
And involves all of their incredible music editors and sound designers. And it's just, that lab has just elevated to a point where I pinch myself. I can't believe how great it's gotten in the past 20 years that they've been doing this. It's unique because at that lab we bring together composer fellows, advisor composers who are top composers in the field, and filmmakers, and it's the only place I know of where they actually put filmmakers and composers together to work together. Whether or not that ends up going off into the world as a finished product isn't even the point. It's all this learning experience. Anyway, so to tie into that, we do this annual roundtable here for composers and directors at the festival. And we take all of our composers, both Kris and Heather happen to be fellows in the lab, different years, but over the last few. And they both have at least one film in the, you have two?
I have one.
Just
film.
one.
Yeah.
She's always has festivals.
She's just so busy. She's
I know
everywhere.
she is. She's everywhere. But they both happen to have films that are in the festival, so it's kind of perfect. They're filmmakers, and they will be on this roundtable tomorrow. We're doing it at the shop at 2 o'clock, and it's a bunch of different composers and directors, and it's like steering the Titanic sometimes to have like 20 people in a conversation.
Except it never sinks.
It never
you see
sinks.
the iceberg and you guys avoid it.
It has a completely different ending.
So, Kris and Heather, I feel composers don't get the respect they deserve because music can manipulate emotions so much, especially in a film. How important is it for you two to work with directors?
I think it's incredibly important, and it's a lot of fun because they describe things in just practical language, right? Like most of them aren't musicians, and so they can't explain things in musical terms, which I actually think is better because then it's all about us interpreting that and trying to translate that into sound. And so, you know, if the director that I was working with says that this doesn't feel like it's nostalgic enough, or it feels maybe a bit too much like a thriller, and it needs to feel a little bit more like he's just very anxious, or, you know, these things that then I have to sit and like try to figure out how to again interpret in sound. Is kind of a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's great too. I mean, say some projects you're involved very early on. You know, like I've had films where I've been lucky enough to work from script, or with this doc that's at the festival, I've been attached to it for 6 years.
Wow.
And I haven't been scoring the whole time. It was more of a mad dash at the end, but I've been thinking about the film and been a good sounding board for ideas. And when you're developing the tone of what the film needs to be, or really find the personality of the person in your film, you know, like music has so much to do with that. It's like, what would our main character listen to, like, as helpful information, or just, you know, that sort of thing. It's really great to be involved early if possible. So.
And how do you guys approach composing a movie? Is it quick? Are you guys kind of like, no, we got this, or does it take a long time? Is it a long process?
For me, it depends. It kind of depends on that early conversation and whether or not you guys get on the same page. Because once that shorthand or that musical vocabulary is established between the director and the composer, I feel like it gets a lot easier, because then when they say these things or ask for revisions, it's very easy to say like, oh, okay, I know what they're possibly looking for. But there's definitely the times where it's been longer, for me at least, it's been where that wasn't really that clear, and so sometimes I'll start writing something and they're like, oh, that's not really what I meant. Then I try something totally different. They're like, oh, that's not really what I meant. So you're still trying to find it. That's like the longest part of the process.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't know. Like, you might have a film that's like, oh, we got into festival, now we need to score it.
Yeah, they're like,
Which
oh,
and
yeah,
you're
we
like,
have to do that
oh,
thing. That thing's important.
Oh, that's a part of post-production. but then there are other processes where it's like, I've worked with a filmmaker before, and this is our second time, and I've seen sketches, or just even from the very like inception of an idea. I like to be able to be a part of that. It's great too. So it really varies. It could be all over the map.
Perfect. And then Doreen, are you kind of like Mother Goose, and you're happy to see your little ducklings go out into the world?
I never thought of it that way, but I love my ducklings, and my ducklings are genius. So it's really been a joy, especially these guys, watching them go out and just accelerate their careers really just incredibly. They're both what I like to call real deal talent, and that's the joy of the job for me, is to watch what happens with you guys.
And is the roundtable exclusive to just directors and composers, or can normal people go and observe it?
Normal people can certainly, well, credential holders for the festival can go, unless you knew us personally and got on our guest list. But but it is open to everybody that's at the festival. And you know, there's certain aspects of it that are technical, and certain aspects of it that are universal, because you're talking about humanity, and you're talking about dramatic intent, and you're talking about art, and everybody involved is really smart and articulate. So we have a good time when we're doing it. We should talk about their films, though.
Yeah,
she
so,
scored
I
a
want to
movie
get
called
that.
Hal.
Yeah, and you guys both have films here.
Yes.
Yeah, so please shill your movies right now.
My film is called Hal. It's directed by Amy Scott, and it's about the filmmaker Hal Ashby, who made Harold and Maude and Being There and The Last Detail and Coming Home, and just an exceptional run in the 70s in particular. And so it's really just filling out sort of the canon of that sort of Easy Riders, Raging Bulls sort of era of filmmaking. Like, he was just could capture the human spirit so well, and it's so great to be able to part of telling his story.
And then Kris, your movie?
Yeah, it's called Monsters and Men, and it's by this director named Reynaldo Marcus Green. And basically it's hard to describe because it's told in these it's like this triptych format where the first 30 minutes follows this one character, and then we transition to another character in the second 30 minutes, and we never actually see that first character again, and then it happens again for the last 30. And essentially what it's about is the very beginning, there's an unarmed man that's shot by the police, and there's the main character in the beginning films that on his phone, and it's just kind of showing how that incident touches different parts and different people in this neighborhood, and it goes from that person that filmed it to this African American cop, and showing his struggle with being on both sides of the coin with this issue, and then the end is just this young teenager that's graduating high school that gets swept up in it, even though he's just trying to become a baseball player. And so it's just showing how, again, this like poetic moment in time, just showing how this one incident affects these various lives, essentially.
Well, thank you, the three of you, for coming on to our show. The workshop is tomorrow, right?
The roundtable is tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the shop.
Perfect. You heard it here, guys. Don't change that channel. We have, I think, a couple more interviews coming up. But anyways, you guys want to stay tuned, because we're beautiful people here, and don't change that channel.